So I'll kick it off. So, hello, everyone, and welcome to my podcast. Today's topic: the top three mistakes that ruin growth when scaling an IT and services business. And I'm Greg Rabine, and I help uh, cybersecurity solution providers scale using AI powered systems so they can grow revenue predictably. And I'm pleased to introduce today's guest, Ryan George, CMO at Docupace. So before I pass the mic, let me just run through the flow a little bit. So we'll start off with having Ryan introduce himself and tell us about his background, his experience, and his journey. And then we'll explore trends Ryan is seeing in the industry. And then we'll talk about opportunities and challenges. And then we'll wrap it up with where Ryan thinks things are headed. So, Ryan, thanks so much for joining today. Appreciate you joining from Dallas. I'm in New York City and close to your headquarters. I know Homedale very well, and most people that know New Jersey know that Bruce Springsteen lives there. So,
Yes, yes. Every time I travel, they make every Uber driver make sure that I know that Bruce Springsteen is there, and John Bon Jovi, I think too.
yeah, you're right, and you're absolutely correct. And then the Garden State Arts Center there, where I've spent many times going to concerts there and
Yep.
seeing like James Taylor or
Yeah,
something like that.
for
But
sure.
anyway, yeah, we'd love to learn more about you and your background, experience, and
So,
journey.
yeah. Thank you for having me, Gregory. I really appreciate it. I am the CMO of Docupace. So, Docupace is a 23-year-old fintech that automates and digitizes things in the back office. How did I get here is an interesting story. I went to college. I went to the University of Texas, Hook'em, and I had lots of fun in college, which means I didn't take as much planning for what my career would be like internships and other fun stuff when I was in school. And so when I got out of college, um, it took 32 interviews for me to land my first job out of school. And that you learn a lot about yourself when you have to explain yourself 32 times over and why you're qualified to be hired. And so I started working as a registered rep where I got licensed and was answering phones. Then I moved into the PR department. My wife and I then started dating. She did long distance, so then I got drug up from San Antonio to Dallas, and I've been here ever since. My way of coming into marketing is through communication. If you think PR, think content, think media engagement, that's and events and other things. That's sort of how I got into where I am today. I've been here for about 5 years, and I've loved most minutes of it.
Wow, wow, nice journey. So, tell us, a little bit about how you and your firm help companies, I should say you and Docupace, help companies avoid scaling pitfalls. When I look at your website, I was very impressed, right? Growing without compliance-ready systems,
Yes.
over relying on manual processes that break at scale, and failing to integrate operations and the stakeholders or the advisor's workflow.
Yeah, it's a good topic. So scale is really at the heart of what we do. So if you think of a firm, and we've all know these firms, sometimes you can grow yourself out of business in terms of you're growing so fast, you don't have the people behind it that can help the firm grow, but more importantly, you don't have the processes built to really scale up and mature the business. And so what Docubase does is take what has historically been a pretty paper-based analog process of bunches of filling out forms and then the PDFs, and then making sure all the forms are right, and then being able to send them across, either through snail mail or what have you, in order to get signed and opened, and that takes a long time. And so what we have done over the years and has progressed as we've gone is made it digitize the process so all the forms become formless, and we have the ability to sign in a single DocuSign envelope, as well as being able to we have added a surveillance and compliance tool, so that makes sure, because if you think of from a archiving system, if there's all sorts of transactions and things that happen, so surveillance is pretty easy to do because you're archiving all the things that are happening and be able to monitor them. Basically, what if you think of what we call the back office? There's the client, there's the advisor, and then there's the back office. We take sort of that third leg of the stool of all the minutia that happens behind the scenes.
So So, is the stakeholder or the advisor, how are they involved? Is there any user training or is it all automated? They don't, they just, so I'm sure there's some type of an alert when somebody's out of compliance.
Yes, yes, there's a learning system, and our surveillance system actually has like 47, I think, different triggers that says, oh, this is, this is trading away or this is front running. So the trading part is an interesting question because utilization is, I think, one of those pitfalls that can really difficult and hamper growth. Which it means if the sales team brings them in, gets them to sign the contract, and then we able to give use professional services to deliver the platform. If we stop there, it's a problem because A, they won't learn it, B, they won't use it, and C, they're likely not going to renew the contract when the contract comes up. So like I would think the biggest thing that most mistakes people do is not following through. I call it like running through the base, like you do in baseball. Like that beginning part is really important to get people in the platform, using it, and really adopting it as a process. I think that's it's not just the technology that needs to be adopted. It's the processes that go along with using that technology in order to really get it used. And so we use what we call train the trainer, which basically means because we sell into enterprises. It's very simple to sort of train the workforce that's then going to go out and interact with the bigger, larger workforce, and that's the direction that we take.
Yeah, I mean, user adoption is obviously critical, but so if people aren't adopting or stakeholders or they're not adopting your solution, what are they doing? I mean, they still need to be compliant, which is the law around FINRA, and they're going back to their old methods?
Sure, like so on the compliant, like on the say the new account process, they can input our new account opening process and digitize it, but then still accept when an advisor submits a paper form, still accept it, right? So we would coach them to say sunset that process, only allow it to come through the digital way. So that would be one way. On the compliance side, it's a little bit different. I think sometimes from the outside in, people think everybody always obeys the rules, but not surprisingly, those rules aren't always followed, even if they're required. And so that would be one way that people just they ignore that area of the business and hopefully cross their fingers that they don't get caught with something.
Well, getting audited. I mean, that
Yes,
would, yeah, and I would think though I mean, the most highly targeted businesses are marketed in the world, right? Wall Street and financial services, and obviously the regulations are pretty robust, to say the least.
for sure.
And in that, and sounds like you guys have a fantastic solution. So tell me a little bit about, and I called on this group for many years, taking, but anyway, taking like the ferry over to Weehawken and UBS and all the companies, but the good old days. So tell me a little bit about your target markets and who are you, who is your ideal customer profile?
Sure. So we have a broad ideal customer profile, and it kind of bases by product line, but I'll speak broadly. So broadly, it's in the financial services space. So somebody who's offering, at the core offering is offering financial advice, investment, retirement management, through a broker dealer or through an RIA. Generally, our target has not been the end financial advisor. It's been the people at the corporate office who are making decisions about what types of technology and processes and rules the field advisor will follow. And so that's been our typical buyer, the people we engage with the most. That has shifted some as the RIA world. The lines between the sort of corporate buyer and the end user are a lot more blurred than they used to be. And so now a lot of the people who are buying our solution are the same people who will be implementing and using our solution. And that's been a shift, I would say, the last 5 to 10 years. The biggest thing that I think for us to remember is that they have to be having a certain flow of accounts and have a business of a certain size in order to really fit that profile, right? Like they have to have grown past manual in terms of being able to manually surveil or manually comply, and that because their business is too big for them to do it by hand.
How many employees? What size type of company would be that threshold, do you think?
Typically, so for our like base Docupace solution, typically over 100.
Okay,
Generally, I would say closer to like 400 or 500 all in would be is more ideal because they have to the volumes are such that really it's hard to process by hand.
sure. So, I mean, you guys solve a great problem around the paper trap, right? So many IT uh, organizations are scaling by adding headcount, right? But they keep relying on manual processes. So from your perspective, right? I mean, you have a different approach, right? Um, Around that risk. So how do you approach these companies, when you first engage with them around, paper heavy or manual workflows, and, how do you help them,
Sure.
break out of that trap?
Well, sure, you understand this. There's really two sides of a technology buy. The first part is how do I get more efficient, effective? How do I work better? And that's part of it, right? So how do I save time in order to be able to do my work? That part is something, a pain point that we press on and a pain point that we speak to, but that doesn't really, I don't really think that drives action because if you were to save people time, there's no guarantee that that time is used effectively, right? So if I give you an hour back in your day, do you just watch YouTube videos or go play golf or what have you? The thing that I think does resonate is, hey, you can have 15, 20, 30% growth and not have to hire a new employee because you have a system that can help scale that growth, right? And so it's allowing people to do more by hiring less. And I think that that's a core piece that resonates with the audience.
So, so then I agree. But does your technology not only identify the out of compliance via an alert with all your, I mean, you have a lot of diagnostics, I'm sure, but does it also have an automated fix?
Yes, so we do have the ability to fix with something depending on what it is. Where we're working next in something a solution we'll have here shortly, which is say there's a trade being made that is unauthorized or at least like some the advisor isn't licensed in that specific state. It can halt the trade, go and get register the advisor and get him registered in that specific state. Once that goes through, then put the trade through in order to allow it to be done in a compliant manner. And that's something that that's an update that we have coming that don't have it in place just yet. But that's the sort of proactive nature of what we do in terms of being able to not only identify it but then close the gap.
Sure. And then if and we're going to give advice to, a financial services firm that is looking to, address their compliance bottleneck, how would you suggest they approach that?
So there's a couple ways. One is we do follow the news, and when somebody gets popped with a regulatory fine, we often will reach out and say, "Don't let this happen again," or we'll even use that somebody else. Joe Smith got that firm got hit with a fine. Don't be like them. Here's the thing. We also often ride into when new regulations are coming out is a good time to grow because we are in one of the businesses where a new legislation or a new piece of regulation actually drives people our direction that I think is important for us.
Nice. Well, we talked about a lot of topics here, and your product sounds great, and I agree with you on, the an integrated product is much better than a patchwork or of a bunch of tools that are, bridged together. So, and that certainly helps with has a big impact, I should say, on adoption. So, now, does your solution address any cybersecurity issues or?
So it doesn't prevent cyber like it's not a cybersecurity forward tool. However, it is a secure tool, meaning like we have the highest level of server protection. But it isn't like a it isn't trying to think of another example like a cyber protection organization. It's more about doing so like because we have so much data that we're protecting that data with all that we can.
Okay, great. So, I guess the last topic that I think would be interesting to to approach and is around the scaling the client experience. So I'm sure you work with the largest Wall Street firms or and also the middle. So what is how do you maintain that client experience with this various types of ideal customer profile and end users?
Sure. So that is a something that can keep you up at night, right? Because the person in the field office that's dealing directly with the client has different needs and has a different day than the person who's working in the home office, right? Like those are two very different things. And so we had just over the past say 18 months or so, maybe even 24 months, have gone through a complete UX UI exercise that updated it. And there's a couple things at the core of it that I think are really important. One, we started with 4 personas, which are the first 2 personas are in that centralized office, the daily user, and then the person who manages the daily user, right? So those, what is their experience like? Then there's in the field, we did the advisor that offers the advice to the client, and then the assistant or operations manager that supports them. So they're the ones that are in the tool. And what we've done is basically taken all the modern elements of that, like GraphQL and other like design elements that allow it to be flexible based on what they need. So historically in the past, if somebody wanted to make a change, like say something similar, small, like change a field name, they would have to put in a ticket to us, and it would have to go through a number of steps, and it would be very delayed. What we're doing is trying to put more capabilities in the hands of the user, whether it's the admin user or the field user, in order to make those changes and do so in easy. Like take integrations, for instance. You were just talking about the importance of integrations. Our new platform, at least the revamped platform, has a integration marketplace that once the of the approved integrations are toggled on, then the end user can then go and configure them themselves versus us having to do it for them. So that's something that I think has helped will help really streamline the client experience in terms of being able to make it fit what they need instead of having to go through us as the bottleneck.
Wow, excellent, great approach. I appreciate that. Well, anyway, Ryan, thank you again for a truly insightful discussion. Your expertise is invaluable for anybody listening and navigating the complexities of scaling IT and business services. So, to my listeners, thank you again for joining. And until next time, stay cyber resilient. Thanks so much.